Hi, O'Connor, back again, part 2 on documentary evidence. This is the Learning Module 8, Chapter 8 of the textbook. Now, hard to get documentary evidence. Yes, a lot of the good evidence that you need for a case is likely to be hard to get. For example, private bank records, tax returns, and brokerage records. And as a result, you may need to get a subpoena from a judge that gives you authority to get such evidence from an insurance company, from a bank, from a brokerage, or from someone else. Or you may need, if you're the police or some other authority, you may need to get a search warrant, especially when you're going to violate someone's individual rights. You may need to get a search warrant to search the premises of a perpetrator, of the fraudster. And that's what we mean by a search warrant. Ideally, though, we would like the fraudster, the perpetrator, the alleged person to give consent to voluntarily offer up the documents. But that is not always going to happen. So you need to rely on experts in many of these cases. The document experts, they are here to help determine whether a document is authentic. Because even when you go into court, the defense, your opponent, may question the genuineness of the document. Is it a counterfeit? Is it fraudulent? Is it forged? Wow. I didn't know I had to worry about that. Yes, you do. Okay. So you might need to have document experts on your side, and you can be sure that your opponent will have a document expert on their side if documents are a critical aspect of the case for the evidence. Wow. So example of a result of document examination, document experts may be brought in to determine many aspects of the documents. And I'm going to show you in the coming slides what I mean. Whether a document has been forged, has it been altered, is the handwriting genuine? If one printer was used, if the document was printed on the date it bears or not before or after. Many different questions are raised about the authenticity of any document that you present as evidence. All right, is this real? Well, let's have a look at if the handwriting is genuine. And there was a big case in Hong Kong where Nina Wang, a major billionaire, passed away, and her lover, Tony Chan, claimed possession of a will that he claimed was executed in 2006, whereas the estate of Nina Wang said, no, he made up that will. The real will was executed in 2002. Both of them had Nina Wang's signature. So therefore, document experts were brought in to adjudicate on the authenticity of the signature on the 2006 executed will. If found to be true, would have given all the money to the lover, Tony Chan. So on the one side, you had the expert on Tony Chan's side saying, yes, I say, based on my expertise and looking at the signature, this is authentic. Whereas the defense, that is the estate of Nina Wang, they had an expert saying, we've looked at many instances of Nina Wang's signatures, and we can categorically say, based on that, the signature on the 2006 will was a fraud. And then in the end, the judge rules that the feng shui master forged this 2006 will, and now the feng shui master is in jail. Wow. So this is real, and this went on for several years when I was living in Hong Kong. So questions related to disputed documents or documents of unknown origin can be grouped into 6 categories. Disputes over the handwriting, disputes over the printing, and then several other items, whether alterations or additions were made, about the age of the document, whether copies were made, and other. So I'm going to go over a few slides. I don't want you to get badgered by all the different things you need to consider. I will point out key items as we go in each of the next 3 or 4 slides. First of all, there are questions about handwriting or printing. And the case I just went over with Nina Wang looked at the handwriting analysis, the signature on that will in 2006, the handwriting expert that was brought in by both sides of the case. They were expert in all of these areas, and you could possibly make a career in just becoming a handwriting expert. And a printing analysis expert, where you're looking at all these elements of printing, copy authentication, actual printer, printer specification, verification, printing timeline, and so forth. As you can see, there is a career in being an expert in all of these areas, handwriting and printing. All right, if that is not enough for you to see, what about this? Alterations, additions, age, copies, and other. Again, you can become an expert in alterations and additions, age verification, miscellaneous checks, and copy analysis. In other words, you can become a disputed documents analysis expert by studying all of these areas. Wow. Do you have to know all these areas for the exam? No. But as a fraud investigator, you need to know when you need to call on one of these experts in your investigation case. Wow. Next, the characteristics of handwriting. You can see in this Nina Wang case that these handwriting experts that were brought in by both sides would have been looking at all of these issues, or a lot of these issues: the flow, the crossing and dotting, the positioning, pen lifts, slant, tremor, neutral, forward. Wow, I didn't know there were just so many elements and characteristics of handwriting. Again, you don't have to remember all this, but get this: as a fraud investigator, your role is to at least have some sense to look at, have any physical alterations been made? Is there consistency in the content? Are there any copy and print indicators? And what about ink and writing anomalies? Look for these. And if there's any suspicion, that's when you need to bring in a document expert to look at it further. That is your role. Because when they're brought in, you need to direct them as to why are you hiring them? Are you hiring them for 1, 2, 3 or more of these warning signs, or just one of these warning signs only? So there you have it. What I did in these 2 parts was I covered a probably more boring element of the whole fraud investigation, because documents are not animate. They don't jump up and say hello to you. They don't have a personality. They don't have character. And in some ways, it may appear on first impressions to be dull and boring. But this is a rich area if you are interested in the ways documents can be created, the way documents can look, the way suspicions can be raised by looking at documents. Then you can become a document expert. You can actually forge a career in this area. No joke at all. So I took you through documentary evidence, obtaining documentary evidence, hard to get documentary evidence, and questions about disputed documents and the fraud investigator's role. Know when you are at the limits of your expertise and know when to call on a document expert. This is O'Connor. Glad to get through this document evidence part. Learning Module 8, Chapter 8. See you in the class. Thank you for joining me.